Okay, so any questions or doubts from the previous sessions? Okay, so to quickly review, last time we were looking at the territory, basically the list boxes. So how you place out the list boxes displays all the unique values of a particular field, so you can use them. Now, if you have this kind of list boxes where it is year, month, kind of a thing, you can convert this into a single row kind of a display where the users can just select it. So like this. Now the last three tabs of this of the list boxes basically number. The number, we saw that you can override the document settings and give the format that you would want to. The next is the font. So font is barely normal or regular how the other applications work. So you have the font style, size, right? So you can select which type of font you would want to, whether regular, bold, or what size you would want to, right? So the fonts for this, every object can be different. You can define at a standard level, or you can change the font for every object. It's not that one object you change, it applies for everything. You can change it for everyone. You get a preview also here. So it says the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So you can see what kind of font or what kind of size that you are putting up. On the bottom you have list boxes, charts, etc. You have the list boxes, charts, etc. Now what happens is, once you create a font for this particular list box, you could select whether you want to apply this as a default to the other list boxes. So that is what this option allows you to do. So you can select this as a default font for all the list boxes, charts, etc. So you can say set. So this font will be applied to all the. Now it won't apply to the existing list boxes. So if you look at it, the list boxes, suppose I change the format and say set, apply and set. Now if you look at it, the old list boxes, year and month didn't change. So it doesn't apply to the existing list boxes. It will apply to the new list boxes. Suppose now I go ahead and bring in a new list box. So just bring in the class. So it will bring all the new list boxes will have the same format. Right. Now that is how you can change the font or be it any format, setting the list boxes. If you want even the text box and buttons also, you can do that. Now I have created this font. Year is one font, territory ID is another font, month is another font. Right? The settings are little different. Now if I want to copy the settings, right, I want the territory back to the year font. So the territory is not looking that good. I want it in the year form, or whatever format this year list box is. I can select this year list box. There's something called as format painter. So you can click on this once. It's just like how in Excel or PowerPoint you can do. Click on the format painter. It will bring this plus and a painter. So if you go on a object, it will say plus and a painter. When you click on it, it will copy the entire format. Now what all things does it copy? So it basically copies the font, the colors if any, the font, the caption colors if any. So those are a couple of things that it will copy. So font is one. The next is layout. Now layout is basically to do with how the look and feel of this list box, or what size, or what else you can do with it. So if you look at the border, there's no much border, right? It's just, that's why basically over here it says shadow intensity, no shadow. But you have given border width as 1, so there is a slight border. Now if you say shadow medium and increase it, you'll have a much thicker border. And if you say intense, it will be even more intense border. Right. So this is how the border you can apply for a border. Now if you don't want a border at all, you just convert this border width to 0. The border itself will be taken off, but this intensity will still be there. So you can just create no shadow and 0 points. There will be no border. So if you see that there's no border, if I just increase it by 1 point, I'll see a light border around the list box. Now this layering, okay. In Qlikview, like I said, every object is everything is an object. So now I have created 4 objects in this sheet. If I take this object, place it above territory ID, take here, place it above territory ID. Month, I will place it above year. Now I have created these objects and I've placed one above the other. So this is how I can do this in Qlikview. I can do a lot of illusions, or like make it look like it's one object or it is different by keeping one object below the other, or creating a border or anything. So there's one text object. I will discuss about the text object later. I'm just trying to show you. Suppose I take this text object. And I leave it like this. So it looks as if it's a border for, if a person is seeing without knowing that it's a text object, it looks like I've colored that area for these objects, right? That particular area. Now, I have to make sure this text object is always at the bottom, and this territory object, when I click on territory, it's coming on top. When I click on class, it comes on top. When I click on month, month is coming on top. When I click on year, year is on top. Now this is the normal state of all the objects. Now suppose I go to the year option, right? If I say, so here in the layout, it says normal. So when it's normal, it behaves like how it just now I demonstrated. So whichever object you click, that object will be activated and will be on the top of all the objects. Now suppose I take this year, go to the properties, and I'd say top, right? So I'll say top. Now what happens is, no matter which object I select, right, year will be on top. So the others are on normal state. That's why I see when I click territory, it's coming over the class. When I click class, it's coming over the territory, but year is still on top of everything. So whichever object I define as top will be on the top. Now the challenge is, if you have these many objects, right, or this text object, no matter how much I'm clicking, it's not coming on top, because the property of this text object is defined as bottom. So if I define this also as normal or top, it will be like, it will also move accordingly, but it is defined as bottom. Yes, I need this as bottom, so I defined it. Now what happens is, challenges when there are so many objects, like you can't define 3 levels, right? Top, bottom, like normal, because if you have like this, I have around 5 objects, it becomes a challenge. So what Qlikview did was, in a normal scenario, if you want to do some really good charts or really good pictures, right, picturization, graphics, you will end up using not less than 15-20 objects, one above the other, like text objects, charts, various other images, etc. Now, in that scenario, what we do is we use the custom. Okay, so we go ahead, we use the custom. Now I will define the bottommost layer as -9. Okay, or you can start with 0 also. So I'll define as 0 custom. Now 0 is there. Now year is the topmost, so I'll define custom year to be 10th level. So it will be always on the top. Let me move this text. I want territory to be the next level of the text object. So I'll define this as level 1. So right above the text object. So now if I put the text object here, territory will be above it, year will be above the territory, because year is the highest, right? Now I have this class. Now class I'm going to define as 3. So no matter what, it will always be on territory. And the month I'm going to define as 4. So month will also be on top of territory. So this is how I can define the multiple layers over here. So year is always on top, right? Month is the next, class is the next, and territory next, and the most bottom layer is the text object. So this is how I can control this layering. There's something called as theme maker and apply theme. So once you create these objects, you can make a theme and then import the theme into other things, other objects or other like applications. But it was really easy in Qlikview 10. But in Qlikview 11, 11.2, they have complicated it with multiple XML files and a lot of complication making a theme overall. I mean, copying a theme from one application to another. But this, if you have time, probably you can do a little R&D and test it out. Otherwise, for all the objects, like I said, you can control whether they can be visible or hidden. So you can conditionally control it. So for all the objects, I mean, for the sheet property, it is in the first tab, general tab. But for all the objects, it will be in the layout tab. So it is always over here where it says always or conditional. So for all the objects, it will be in layout tab. So in conditional, you can say what condition. So on the layout, you can say always or what condition. You can give a specific condition for its visibility, or you can just hide it. We'll discuss about this expression editor later. This is how you can create this condition. Move or size the object, copy or clone the object. Right. So suppose I rearrange these objects. Are you able to hear me? In between, I was losing you. Are you able to hear me now?
A little bit. Very.
Is it still the same way? Okay. while we were going, I was going through this territory object, a layout. Allow move size. So you can see this right now. If somebody by accident moves it or size it or anything, so you're able to do this thing. So you can move it or however you want to do it. Instead of that, what you can do is you can go to layout and uncheck allow move size, right? Or copy clone. So the moment you do this, I can't move the territory ID. So you can control it that way. Neither I can copy it, right? I can't copy it or clone it. So in Qlikview, we call it as cloning. Copying the object also has a cloning the object property. So if you uncheck this, the user will not be able to do anything of this. Now what happens is, at the browser level, right, on the browser itself, if you have checked this, if it is like you have checked both of the options, on the browser the user will be able to move the cursor, move the object or resize the object. When you uncheck it on the browser also, user will not be able to do anything. Then you have size to data, allow info. Now size to data doesn't apply for a text list box, but it applies for a text box, table box. Basically, depending on the size, the box size will also become like larger or smaller. In fact, if you don't do this size to data, you can define one set size of the box. Whether the data is 1 line or 1000 lines, the size of the box will remain standard. Allow info is somebody right clicks and asks for info about this object. You can see this info or info of the, you can write some comments. I'll show you the place where the comments are written. There the information will be shown. Preserve scroll position. So when a user logs in and logs out, right, so there might be a scroll position that he is there in. So if you check this, it will preserve that scroll position, not in the developer phase, but in the UI I'm talking about, user profile. Now that is the scroll that you can see that on the territory box. So you can change the color of that, right, if you want it more viable. It's not so good color, but you can have it. The background is white, so you can change the background too. So if you want it to be a little darker. So scroll background and scroll width if you want it to be big, if you want a little bigger width. The last tab is the caption tab. Caption is nothing but what you see that on top, right? It says territory ID. So that is called as caption. Now caption is there for every object. So be it any object, always a caption will be there. Now the caption also works. There are a couple of features for this caption. First thing is the title. So what text you would want in the caption, you can do it. You can have a specific font for the caption. Overall object font is different. That font we saw here in the font tab, but this font tab is for the caption alone. If you, okay, on top you have this show caption. If you uncheck this, the caption will hide. So if you just want the list box with the values, you can have this. If you want the caption, you can give the caption too. So next there is, like, once you have updated the font, the caption alignment is there. You want centered, left, how you want it. So if you do centered, the caption alignment becomes centered. Now there is something called as inactive, active caption. If you carefully look at it, territory ID is a dark color, gray, class, year, month or light. When I come to year, year becomes dark, others are light. Class becomes dark, others are light. So basically, this is whenever I click on an object, right, whenever I click, that object is being activated and that's the active object. And the rest of the objects are inactive objects. So if you see this class, territory ID, all these are inactive objects. Now you can go to the properties, and if you look at it, there's something called as what color if it is inactive, what color it is active. So it is light gray, dark gray. So you can flip it. So if you want, when it is inactive, you want it to be like, say, light green, and when it is active, you want it to be dark green. So the choice will be yours. So you can do this. But the problem is, you will have to do this for every single object, right? You did this for territory ID. It is applicable only for the territory ID. When you come to class, though territory ID is becoming light green, class is not becoming dark green because you have not set the properties of this. So you'll have to go to the properties of class and apply the same colors over here also for inactive, active background. And that is when you will be able to do it. So you can change the text color too. So if you look at the text color is black, right? Both the cases, you can change it whether black, red, however you want to when it is active and active. You can have a caption like a big, like territory ID. You can write the paragraph itself. Like a big paragraph. Now if you see this, I have given wrap text cell height 2. Because of that, it's taking it. If I don't uncheck this, right, it will take as one line only, hide the rest. If I've used a wrap text, it will give you, it will enable you to do it. Now you can add multiple lines over here. So you can say wrap text 5 lines. So however, whatever the height of caption that you want to apply over here. So that is what you can do. Then there is special icons. Now you see that search magnifier glass, right? So that says search. Now this search is nothing but, if you click on it, it will allow you to search. Now on a object, if you right click, you get a lot of options. What you get is properties, search, fuzzy search, advanced search, select possible, select excluded, select all, clear other fields. Right, create quick chart, create time chart, create statistic box. So all these options you get. But what you can do is right click properties. You have all these options listed over here also. Menu, print, copy data, copy image to clipboard, send, Excel, everything. Suppose you have an object and you enable all of these. All it will do is create icons on top. So users don't have to run around or think, okay, what it is and where it is. Just copy, apply. So if you look at it, okay, this active caption color is a little too dark to really understand what is it. I'll just copy paste the format. Right. Now look here. So copy image, search, select possible, select excluded, erase, send to Excel, print, all this. All the options will be enabled if you check. So based on what options you want to give the user, you can select the option from here. Right, so if you, on bottom, if you see this, allow minimize, right, allow maximize. We'll come back to AutoMinimize. So the option will be here. So when the user clicks, it maximizes. This is valid for all the objects, even the charts or anything. When you minimize this, it will go ahead and settle over here. I mean, you can rearrange it, so it will be like this. When a user double clicks, maximize, double click, minimize. Now, when I have two or more objects, right? Suppose a class. Now, this is not valid for CS. I mean, this is not really that important for a list box. Okay? But when you have like multiple multiple reports in a table box. So I have this kind of report. Now what happens is when I double click territory ID, it should open here. When I double click class, class will also open here. But I want territory ID to minimize, right? So how it should happen is when I double click on territory ID, it should open. It should minimize and open class, and the same thing should open for year 2. So year also should open in the same place. Month also should open in the same place. Now this was typically, this method was used extensively in Qlikview 9 and 10. The reason being, if you had multiple reports, right, tabular reports, the space consumption on the screen was a lot. That's why what they used to do is, when you double click on one report, it should be visible. The same way, when you double click on other, the first one should get minimized and this. So there was this AutoMinimize option in all these things. So if you go to the caption, there's this AutoMinimize. So you can apply this for every object. AutoMinimize will make sure that if another AutoMinimized object, which has this AutoMinimized object function checked, if that object is launched, the other one is minimized. Right, so automatically getting minimized. At any given point of time, only one object will be minimized. So that's the auto minimize object. Maximize it. Here you can write the help text about the territory ID. So if somebody asks for show information, they'll be able to see this. The moment you write this, this object, one question mark will be visible. Only the question mark is the information. So it shows the information of this particular object. You can go to the properties and you can, so this normal or minimized, right? Normal scenario, what is the X position, Y position? Now X position starts from the top where you see this main, right? So that 0, 0, 0 position is the top left hand corner. From there, X is horizontal, Y is the vertical towards the bottom. So it gives you the position. So if you move the X by, say, a couple of points, so you see this, it's moving to the right. If I move the Y to a couple of points, it will move to the bottom. Right? So that's all. Width again is the size of the object, and height is again the size. Now, when you select the minimized, it shows you the minimized. Where does it sit when it is minimized? So the minimized option is here. So you can change the minimized sizing or anything if you want to control specific place or placement or anything. Give me 5 minutes. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Right. So that was the caption object font layout. Apart from this, do you have any questions here for these objects, basically? Now the best practicing for layout is, so your information should start with this list boxes. So list boxes are primary because you need to allow the user to select options, right? So, and you have to give them the right kind of options in these icons also. You don't have to give all the icons because now if you want to select two or more objects, right? So I can resize, suppose this size of this class and territory is totally different. You select on one, click on one object. You can't use control to select the other object. You'll have to use the shift. So you click on this territory ID, use the shift button and click on the class. Both the objects are selected. The moment you select two or more objects, on top these alignment features get enabled. Otherwise these are disabled generally. Now you can see this one says align left. So when I say align left, both the objects will align itself left. Align right will align right. Bottom, so in the center, like on top, just spread it out or anything. So however you want to. Right. Again, align left. Now once you align left, you can move them. So you can actually hold the cursor and move it, or you can use Control Shift and move. It will move 10 pixels at a time. If you use only Control, it will move 1 pixel at a time. So if you look at it, it's moving 1 pixel at a time. If you use Control Shift, it will move 10 pixels at a time. Right. Now, while they are selected, if you move the objects, right, resize the objects, all the objects will become of the same size, whatever size, height or width that you can specify. Over here, it's mainly width. You can't specify the height, so the width, I mean, even the height change. So you can do this. So similarly, if you want, now if you don't want to use control, you can drag and select the objects like this. Only challenge over here is you have to make sure the entire object is in the selection box. So whatever dragging and selecting you're doing, it should be on this. So you can drag and select. Okay. Move this down. Now you have started the layout. So you have basically started the layout. In the layout, you're giving you basically the selection. Now, for the best practices in your every application, always bring in a current selection box. So the next object is new sheet object, current selection box. Now this current selection box is nothing but there's no more properties, only font, layout, caption, which is exactly the same that we saw. So there's absolutely no difference. In the general, it just says the title, current selection, what all fields that you need to show, status, values, drop down, select, clear icon. I will show that. So when I say OK, current selection box comes as a blank box. So if you can put this on the top of this, right? So like this. Now what does this current selection box do? It basically, okay, this is the maximum you can minimize or reduce the size of this, so you can keep the current selection box. Size all the other objects similarly. Whatever selections the user makes, right? 2005, 7, whatever the selection the user makes, all the selections will be visible over here, right? The eraser button is nothing but the erase option, clear option. The drop down, the small arrow is the drop down. If the user wants to change the month, it does not have to go to the list box. He can use this drop down, change the month from here. Here, same thing. The green indicator is that there is a selection, and whatever values are selected will be displayed. Suppose if you select two values, 3, 4, 4. If you select more values which are not visible over here, it will just display all, or it's going to display like 9 out of couple of, not December. So except December, it is you're displaying, I think, not November, December. But if you have a very huge list, right, like the customer ID, and under customer ID you select some. So it says 8 out of 19,000. So that's how it is going to display if you have that. Yeah, because we had set the font, that's why the font is coming like that. So I'll just change it off. Now you can enable and disable what all the fields that you want. So whether you want the status is nothing but the green color. You don't want it, right? The green will not be visible. You want the clear icons, eraser? No, no. You want the values? Yes, I definitely need the values, right? Otherwise it will just show me the drop down. So I can keep this. Drop down select, that small arrow I don't want. I can say okay. The drop down select is gone. So that way I can choose what I want to. I can give the way where I can give column names. I can say fields and values. So it will say these are the fields, these are the values, and status also. I can give the label background, how the labels, label text, everything. Apart from that, current selection ID is CS. Font layout caption remains the same thing. So this is how you can define a current selection box. And the best practice is always have a current selection box in your listing. Now, if you look at it, I have the year, month on top, so my layout looks good on top. I have a current selections on the right, on the left. Below that is my other, basically other selection boxes. I have given 2 selection boxes, territory ID and class. With this 2 only, the place is almost full, right? I don't have a placeholder. I don't have an option to give few more text boxes. Suppose I want to give product ID, I want to give address, I want to give sales order ID, nowhere I can give, right? The place is almost full. So for that, what Qlikview did was, it brought in an object called as, so right click, properties, Multibox. Now what this Multibox does, it is exactly as a, the properties are like list box, but a Multibox can have more than one field. So list box is only one field, right? Suppose I go ahead and select product ID. Can say product ID. More than product ID, I should have product name. Yep, product name. I have customer name. Special offer ID. And territory name, right? So I have all of these. When I say OK, what Qlikview does is it created a multi-box, right, with so over here there will be multiple list boxes basically. So you have customer ID, product name, customer name. So every option is a list box. Only thing, the list box will not be visible. Whenever you select a drop down, it will show you drop down of objects. So whenever you want to select something, right, click on customer ID, it will give you a drop down, you can select. But the properties of the other things, right, so it is still showing unique values, still will show everything. So if you go to the option properties, so here you can put whatever order you want to. So load order is which field was loaded first. Count order is whichever field has the lowest count will be on the top and the highest count will be in the bottom. Text order is alphabetical. In spite of this, you want to specifically reorder it, you can do promote demote option. You can change labels also. Right. Under sort, now this sort is not for the order of these 5 fields. It is within the fields. How do you want to sort it? Territory name, I want to sort it by A to Z. Special offer ID, numeric. Customer ID, numeric. Within the field, the drop down, how I want to. The only major difference is the presentation, but it is exactly same as the list box presentation or options. Only thing you have to select the field. To select the field, you can say alignment, left, center, right, how you want it. Whether you want to wrap text, you want to show frequency for territory name. So you say show frequency, it will show frequency only for territory name. Single column, similarly. Cell borders, hide, excluded, ignore, all these things are valid like the list box. Now suppose customer ID is a big list, right? I will uncheck this single column. Right? I will keep it that. I'll say apply. Now what happens is if I go to the customer ID and drop down. Okay. Special offer ID, territory ID. Territory ID is showing me frequency, right? Or your name is repeated only once, right? Because the name is not there in the fact, it is there in the separate table. That's why it is shown only once. Over here. Over here you can say a single column, which is taken off. Now what happens is it is showing me a single. It will not show me a double column unless I limit it. These are individual options for the individual fields that we have selected. Now overall, the bottom part, whatever you're seeing in this box is for individual fields, but the bottom part which says grid, style, limit, dropdown, it is for all the fields at once. So you can select a grid style. I'll come back to grid style. Before that, if I limit dropdown to 10, so what happens is when I'm selecting customer ID, all the dropdowns are, a big list is being visible. Instead of that, I can say drop down to 10 lines. What it will do is it will limit to 10 lines and give me a scroll. So here it is giving me a scroll. So no matter how many values I have, it will always limit every value to 10 values and give me a scroll. That way. Read closed. What is the color when it is closed? So you can see this. Read only, you can't select it. Now this grid style. So now you're seeing this as like when I'm using the drop down, the name is not clearly visible, right? The full name, it's being truncated because there is half the name of the field, half the value. Instead of that, what you can do is you can choose this grid style. It will switch. The top will be the name of the field. The bottom will be below that will be the selection option like this. Territory name, that one. Special offer ID, this. Customer ID, this. Now it is showing me 3 columns. 4 columns basically, 3 columns basically, because I have unchecked the single column option, right? So it is showing me that way. So this is customer ID, single column option. Now our layout is kind of barely enabled. The best practice is create the first page of layout that you want as a standard layout. So what I mean is, so now I created this layout, right? I am good with this. Now I will use this layout for everything. And this dark gray is not looking good. What we can do is we can create this dark gray as a background image only for the selection objects and put this to the lowest possible value. So this looks like, okay, this area is only for selection. Like this. Now the best practice is when you move from one sheet to another, right? So I'm creating the second sheet. Don't copy paste these objects. just copy this sheet. So you copy the sheet, a copy of sheet will be created. If you look at it, when the user moves between sheets, right, the selection objects should be exactly the same position and kind of same selection objects only. So you don't have to change the selection objects between sheets because it will confuse the user. Otherwise he'll think that, okay, this option is available only in this sheet, that option is available. So he should be able to select however he wants to. But the option should be same. So you make sure the layout is exactly the same thing. So when he moves from main to copy main, there's absolutely no change, right? Only the charts in the center should change. This is how you should create. So you want to create a third page, copy sheet and create it. And you'll have exactly the same layout in all the three sheets. The next kind of list box, multi-box, we saw the current selection box. There's a statistic box. This statistic box is not really advanced or any different. It's just that you can select a particular field. Suppose I select the order quantity field. So let's go ahead and I'll select the order quantity field. Over here it says available functions. On right hand side it will say displayed functions, total count, sum, average, minimum, maximum. So it basically gives me the statistics of that particular field. When I say order quantity, it says what is the total sum of the entire order quantity. It's giving me the count. It has 1,21,317 records. It gives me the sum of the total order quantity, 2,74,000. It gives me the average per quantity. So whatever, the total divided by sum divided by total count, average. Minimum, there's the lowest value of order quantity is one quantity and the maximum order quantity is 44. So it gives me a quick statistics out of this entire application. This is not really, a use case specific thing. It is helpful when you want to show, okay, like just like this in your order quantity, which is the highest, which is the maximum, what is the sum, what is the average, and what is the total. So quickly you can do this. Instead of, if you had to do it manually, it would have taken you 5 expressions to do this, right? You can do that. Similarly, you have a couple of them. You can add standard deviation, you can add numeric count, you can add median, false, like how you want to. Right? So it says numeric count, median, standard deviation is 2.4. You can add those things. You can say show standard error, the scientific calculations, the deviation errors, right? It is showing over there. Cell borders, you can say how you want the font, numeric, total, how. Then font, layout, caption is the same thing. And the number you can specify for every object, everything over here. You can specify what is it that you want. I'll say this as fixed to 3 decimal places. Fixed to 3 decimal places. That's our statistic box. Alright, what I would suggest is go ahead and practice these 4 objects: list box, statistic box, multi-box, current selection box. Then we will move ahead into slowly other objects and follow it up. I think this weekend you could practice the remaining scripting part also. And if you have any doubts, we'll take it up in the next week sessions.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Abe. Thanks, Alpana. Have a good weekend. Thanks. Bye-bye.